Chapter 3, Meeting Life Challenges. Introduction. Raj has been studying for his final examinations, which is going to take place tomorrow morning. He studies till 1 am in the night. Unable to concentrate anymore, he sets the alarm for 6 am and tries to go off to sleep. As he is very tense, he keeps tossing and turning in the bed. Images flash through his mind of not being able to secure the marks he needs to opt for the subject of his choice. He blames himself for fooling around with his friends and not preparing thoroughly for the examination. In the morning, he wakes up with a heavy head, misses breakfast, and barely makes it in time to school for his examination. He opens the question paper, his heart pounding, hands clammy with sweat, and then he feels his mind has gone completely blank. Some of you have lived through an experience such as Raj's. The challenge posed by examinations is common to all students. You are perhaps already thinking about a career. What if you are denied this choice? Will you give up? Life poses challenges all the time. Think of a child who loses her or his parents at a young age and with no one to take care of her or him. A young woman who loses her husband in a car accident. Parents who bring up children who are physically or mentally challenged. Young girls or boys who have to spend long nights in call centers and then catch up on their sleep during the daytime. Look around yourself and you will find that life is a big challenge. All of us try to meet these challenges in our own way. Some of us succeed while others succumb to such life stresses. Life challenges are not necessarily stressful. Much depends on how a challenge is viewed. A number 11 batsman in a cricket team will view facing a fast bowler's delivery differently than would an opening batsman, who will look forward to such a challenge. It is said that one's best comes out when one is challenged. We'll take to consider in this chapter how a life condition turns into a challenge or a cause of stress. Further, we'll also see how people respond to various life challenges as well as stressful situations. Nature, types, and sources of stress. While waiting to cross the road on a busy Monday morning, you may be temporarily stressed, but because you are alert, vigilant, and aware of the danger, you are able to cross the road safely. Faced with any challenge, we put in additional efforts and mobilize all our resources and the support system to meet the challenge. All the challenges, problems, and difficult circumstances put us to stress. Thus, if handled properly, stress increases probability of one's survival. Stress is like electricity, it gives energy, increases human arousal, and affects the performance. However, if the electric current is too high, it can fuse bulbs, damage appliances, etc. High stress too can produce unpleasant effects and cause our performance to deteriorate. Conversely, too little stress may cause one to feel somewhat listless and low on motivation, which may lead us to perform slowly and less efficiently. It is important to remember that not all stress is inherently bad or destructive. Eustress is the term used to describe the level of stress that is good for you and is one of a person's best assets for achieving peak performances and managing minor crises. Eustress, however, has the potential of turning into distress. It is this latter manifestation of stress that causes our body's wear and tear. The stress can be described as a pattern of responses an organism makes to stimulus event that disturbs the equilibrium and exceeds a person's ability to cope. Nature of stresses. The word stress has its origin in the Latin word strictus, meaning tight or narrow, and stringere, the verb meaning to tighten. These root words reflect the internal feelings of tightness and constrictions of the muscles and breathing reported by many people under stress. Stress is often explained in terms of characteristics of the environment that are disruptive to the individual. Stressors are events that cause our body to give the stress response. Such events include noise, crowding, a bad relationship, or the daily commuting to school or office. The reaction to external stressors is called strain. Stress has come to be associated with both the causes as well as effects. However, this view of stress can cause confusion. Hans Selye, the father of modern stress research, defines stress as the non-specific response of the body to any demand. That is, regardless of the cause of the threat, the individual will respond with the same psychological pattern of reactions. Many researchers do not agree with this definition, as they feel that the stress response is not nearly as general and non-specific as Selye suggests. Different stressors may produce somewhat different patterns of stress reaction, and different individuals may have different characteristics modes for response. You may recall the case of an opening batsman mentioned earlier. Each one of us will see the situation through our own eyes, and it is our perception of the demands and ability to meet them which will determine whether we are feeling stressed or not. Stress is not a factor that resides in the individual or the environment. Instead, it is embedded in an ongoing process that involves individuals transacting with their social and cultural environments, making appraisals of those encounters, and attempting to cope with the issues that arise. Stress is a dynamic mental cognitive state. It is a disruption in homeostasis, an imbalance that gives rise to a requirement for resolution of the imbalance or restoration of homeostasis. The perception of stress is dependent upon the individual's cognitive appraisal of events and the resources available to deal with them. The stress process, based on the cognitive theory of stress propounded by Lazarus and his colleagues, is described in figure. An individual's response to a stressful situation largely depends upon the perceived events and how they are interpreted or appraised. Lazarus has distinguished between two types of appraisal, that is, primary and secondary. Primary appraisal refers to the perception of a new or changing environment as positive, neutral, or negative in its consequences. Negative events are appraised for their possible harm, threat, or challenge. Harm is the assessment of the damage that has already been done by an event. Threat is the assessment of possible future damage that may be brought about by the event. Challenge appraisals are associated with more confident expectations of the ability to cope with the stressful event, the potential to overcome and even profit from the event when we receive an event is stressful. We are likely to make secondary appraisal, which is the assessment of one's coping abilities and resources and whether they will be sufficient to meet the harm, threat, or challenge of the event. These resources may be mental, physical, personal, or social. If one has a positive attitude, health, skills, and social support to deal with the crisis, she or he will feel less stressed. This two-level appraisal process determines not only our cognitive or behavioral responses but also our emotional and physiological responses to external events. These appraisals are very subjective and will demand on many experience factors. One factor is past experience of dealing with such a stressful condition. If one has handled similar solution and situation then successfully in the past, they would be less threatening for her or him. Another factor is whether the stressful event is perceived as controllable. That is, whether one has mastery or control over a situation. A person who believes that she can control the onset of a negative situation or its adverse consequences will experience less amount of stress than those who have no such sense of personal control. For example, a sense of self-confidence or efficacy can determine whether the person is likely to appraise the situation as a threat or a challenge. Thus, the experience and the outcome of a stressor may vary from individual to individual. Stress includes all those environmental and personal events which challenge or threaten the well-being of a person. These stressors can be external, such as environmental, social, or psychological within the individual. Very often these stresses result in a variety of stress reactions which may be physiological, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive. At the physiological level, arousal plays a key role in stress related behaviors. The hypothalamus initiates action along two pathways. The first pathway involves the autonomic nervous system. The adrenal gland releases large amount of clomides, eniprine, and norepinephrine into the bloodstream. This leads to physiological changes seen in fight or flight response. The second pathway involves the pituitary gland, which secretes the corticosteroid, which provides energy. The emotional reactions to experience of stress include negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, embarrassment, anger, depression, or even denial. The behavioral responses are virtually limitless depending on the nature of the stressful event. Confrontative action against the stressor or withdrawal from the threatening event are two general categories of behavioral responses. Cognitive responses include beliefs about the harm or threat an event poses and beliefs about its causes or controllability. These include responses such as inability to concentrate and intrusive, repetitive, or morbid thoughts. As indicated, the stress which people experience also vary in terms of intensity, low intensity versus high intensity, duration, short term versus long term, complexity, less complex versus more complex, predictability, unexpected or persist predictable. The outcome of stress depends on the position of a particular stressful experience along these dimensions, usually more intense, prolonged, or chronic, complex, and unanticipated stresses have more negative consequences than have less intense, short term, less complex, and expected stresses. An individual's experiences of stress depends on the physiological strength of that person. Thus, individuals with poor physical health and weak constitution would be more vulnerable than would be those who enjoy good health and a strong constitution. Psychological characteristics like mental health, temperament, and self concept are relevant to the experience of stress. The cultural context in which we live determines the meaning of any event and defines the nature of response that is expected under various conditions. Finally, the stress experience will be determined by the resources of the person, such as money, social skills, coping style, support networks. All these factors determine the appraisal of a given stressful situation. Signs and symptoms of stress. The way we respond to stress varies depending upon our personality, early upbringing, and life experiences. Everyone has their own pattern of stress response, so the warning signs may vary, as may their intensity. Some of us know the pattern of stress response and can gauge the depth of the problem by the nature and severity of our own systems or changes in behavior. These symptoms of stress can be physical, emotional, and behavioral. Any of the symptoms can indicate a degree of stress which, if left unresolved, might have serious implications. Types of stress. The three major types of stress, which physical and environmental, psychological and social, are listed. It is important to understand that all these types of stress are interrelated. Physical and environmental stress. Physical stresses are demands that change the state of our body. We feel strained when we overexert ourselves physically, lack a nutritious diet, suffer an injury, or fail to get enough sleep. Environmental stresses are aspects of our surroundings that are often unavoidable, such as air pollution, crowding, noise, heat of the summer, winter cold, etc. Another group of some environmental stresses are catastrophic events or disasters such as fire, earthquake, floods, etc. Psychological stress. These are stresses that we generate ourselves in our minds. These are personal and unique to the person experiencing them, and they are internal sources of stress. We worry about problems, feel anxiety, or become depressed. These are not only symptoms of stress, but they cause further stress for us. Some of the important sources of psychological stress are frustration, conflicts, internal and social pressures, etc. Frustration results from the blocking of needs and motives by something or someone that hinders us from achieving a desired goal. There could be a number of causes of frustration, such as social discrimination, interpersonal hurt, low grades in school. Conflicts may occur between two or more incompatible needs or motives. Example, whether to study dance or psychology. You may want to continue studies or take up a job. There may be a conflict of values when you are pressurized to take any action that may be against the values held by you. Internal pressures stem from beliefs based upon expectations from inside us to ourselves, such as I must do everything perfectly. Such expectations can only lead to disappointment. Many of us drive ourselves ruthlessly towards achieving unrealistically high standards in achieving our goals. Social pressures may be brought about from people who make excessive demands on us. This can cause even greater pressure when we have to work with them. Also, there are people with whom we face interpersonal difficulties, a personality clash of sorts. Social stress. These are induced externally and result from our interactions with other people, social events like death or illness in the family, strained relationships, trouble with neighbors are some examples of social stresses. These social stresses vary widely from person to person. Attending parties may be stressful for a person who likes to spend quiet evenings at home, while an outgoing person finds staying at home in the evening stressful. Sources of stress. A wide range of events and conditions can generate stress. Among most important of these are major stressful life events such as death of a loved one or personal injury, the annoying frequently hassles of everyday life, and traumatic events that affect our lives. Life events. Changes both big and small, sudden and gradual, affect our life from the moment we are born. We learn to cope with small everyday changes, but major life events can be stressful because they disturb our routine and cause upheaval. If several of these life events that are planned or unpredicted occur within a short period of time, we find it difficult to cope with them and will be more prone to symptoms of stress. Hassles. These are personal stresses we endure as individuals due to happenings in our daily life, such as noisy surroundings, commuting, quarrelsome neighbors, electricity and water shortage, traffic snarls, and so on. Attending to various emergencies are daily hassles experienced by a housewife. There are some jobs in which daily hassles are very frequent. These daily hassles may sometimes have devastating consequences for the individual, who is often the one coping alone with them, as others may not be even aware of them as outsiders. The more stress people report as a result of daily hassles, the poorer is their psychological well-being. Traumatic events. These events include a variety of extreme events such as fire, train or road accident, robbery, earthquake, tsunami, etc. The effects of these events may occur after some lapse of time and sometimes persist as symptoms of anxiety, flashbacks, dreams, and intrusive thoughts. Severe trauma can also strain relationships. Professional help will be needed to cope with them, especially if they persist for many months after the event is over. Effects of stress on psychological functioning and health. What are the effects of stress? Many of the effects are physiological in nature. However, other changes also occur inside stressed individuals. There are 4 major effects of stress associated with stress state, viz. Emotional, physiological, cognitive, and behavioral. Emotional effects. Those who suffer from stress are far more likely to experience mood swings and show erratic behavior that may alienate them from family and friends. In some cases, this can start a vicious circle of decreasing confidence, leading to more serious emotional problems. Some examples are feelings of anxiety and depression, increased physical tension, increased psychological tension, and mood swings. Box 3.2 represents the phenomena of examination anxiety. Physiological effects. When the human body is placed under physical or psychological stress, it increases the production of certain hormones, such as adrenaline and cortisol. These hormones produce marked changes in the heart rate, blood pressure vessels, metabolism, and physical activity. Although this physical reaction will help us function more effectively when we are under pressure for short periods of time, it can be extremely damaging to the body in the long-term effects. Examples of physiological effects are release of epinephrine and norepinephrine, slowing down of the digestive system, expansion of air passages in the lungs, increased rate heart and constriction of blood vessels. Cognitive effects. If pressure due to stress continue, one may suffer from mental overload. This suffering from high level of stress can rapidly cause individuals to lose their ability to make sound decisions. Faulty decisions made at home, in career, or at workplace may lead to arguments, failure, financial loss, or even loss of job. Cognitive effects of stress are poor concentration and reduced short term memory capacity. Behavioral effects. Stress affects our behavioral in the form of eating less nutritional food, increasing intake of stimulants such as caffeine, excessive consumption of cigarettes, alcohol, and other drugs such as tranquilizers, etc. Tranquilizers can be addictive and have side effects such as loss of concentration, poor coordination, and dizziness. Some of the typical behavioral effects of stress seen are disrupted sleep patterns, increased absenteeism, and reduced work performance. Stress and health. You must have often observed that many of your friends fall sick during examination time. They suffer from stomach upsets, body aches, nausea, diarrhea, and fever. You must also notice that people who are unhappy in their personal lives fall sick more than those who are happy and enjoy life. Chronic daily stress can divert an individual's attention from caring for herself or himself. When stress is prolonged, it affects physical health and impairs psychological functioning. People experience exhaustion and attitudinal problems when their stress due to demands from the environment and constraints are too high, and little support is available from family and friends. The physical exhaustion is seen in the signs of chronic fatigue, weakness, and low energy. The mental exhaustion appears in the form of irritability, anxiety, feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. This state of physical, emotional, and psychological exhaustion is known as burnout. There is also convincing evidence to show that stress can produce changes in the immune system and increase the chances of someone becoming ill. Stress has been implicated in the development of cardiovascular disorders, high blood pressure, as well as psychosomatic disorders including ulcers, asthma, allergies, and headaches. Researchers estimate that stress plays an important role in 50 to 70% of all physical illnesses. Studies also reveal that 60% of medical visits are primarily for stress related systems. General adaptation syndrome. What happens to the body when stress is prolonged? Shelley studied this issue by subjecting animals to a variety of stresses such as high temperature, X-rays, and insulin injections in the lab over a long period of time. He also observed patients with various injuries and illnesses in hospitals. Shelley noticed a similar pattern of bodily response in all of them. He called this pattern the general adaptation syndrome. According to him, GAS involves three stages: alarm reaction, resistance, exhaustion. Alarm reaction stage. The presence of a noxious stimulus or stressor leads to activation of the adrenal pituitary cortex system. This triggers the release of hormones producing the stress response. Now the individual is ready for flight or fight. Resistance stage. If stress is prolonged, the resistance stage begins. The parasympathetic nervous system calls for more cautious use of body's resources. The organism makes effort to cope with the threat as through confrontation. Exhaustion stage. Continued exposure to the same stressor or additional stressors drains the body of its resources and leads to the third stage of exhaustion. The physiological system involved in alarm reaction and resistance become ineffective, and susceptibility to stress related diseases such as high blood pressure becomes more likely. Shelley's model has been criticized for assigning a very limited role to psychological factors in stress. Researchers have reported that psychological appraisal of events is important for the determination of stress. How people respond to stress is substantially influenced by their perceptions, personalities, and biological constitutions. Stress in immune system. Stress can cause illnesses by impairing the workings of the immune system. The immune system guards the body against attackers, both from within and outside. Psychoneuroimmunology focuses on the links between the mind, brain, and the immune system. It studies the effect of stress on the immune system. How does the immune system work? The white blood cells within the immune system identify and destroy foreign bodies, antigens such as viruses. It also leads to the production of antibodies. There are several kinds of white blood cells or leukocytes within the immune system, including T cells, B cells, and natural killer cells. T cells destroy invaders, and T helper cells increase immunological activity. It is these T helpers that are attacked by the human immunodeficiency virus, the virus causing acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. B cells produce antibodies. Natural killer cells are involved in the fight against both viruses and tumors. Stress can affect natural killer cell cytotoxicity, which is one of the major importance in the defense against various infections and cancer. Reduced level of natural killer cell cytotoxicity have been found in people who are highly stressed, including students facing important examinations, bereaved persons, and those who are severely depressed. Studies reveal that immune functioning is better than individuals receiving social support. Also, changes in the immune system will have more effect on health among those who have immune systems are already weakened. Figure depicts the sequence comprising negative emotions, release of stress hormones, which leads to the weakening of immune system, thereby affecting mental and physical health. Psychological stress is accompanied by negative emotions and associated behaviors, including depression, hostility, anger, and aggression. Negative emotion states of particular concern to the study of effects of stress on health. The incidence of psychological disorders such as panic attacks and obsessive behavior increases with the buildup of long-term stress. Worries can reach such a level that they surface as frightening, painful physical sensation, which can be mistaken for a heart attack. People under prolonged stress are more prone to irrational fears, mood swings, and phobias, and may experience fits of depression, anger, and irritability. These negative emotions appear to be related to the function of the immune system, our ability to interpret our world and to invest that interpretation with a powerful and direct effect on the body. Negative moods have been associated with poorer health outcomes. Feelings of hopelessness are related to worsening of disease, increased risk of injury, and death due to various causes. Lifestyle stress can lead to unhealthy lifestyle or health damaging behavior. Lifestyle is the overall pattern of decisions and behaviors that determine a person's health and quality of life. Stressed individuals may be more likely to expose themselves to pathogens, which are agents causing physical illness. People who are stressed have poor nutritional habits, sleep less, and likely to engage in other health risking behaviors like smoking and alcohol abuse. Such health impairing behaviors develop gradually and are accompanied by pleasant experiences temporarily. However, we tend to ignore their long term damaging effects and underestimate the risk they pose to their lives. Studies have revealed that health promoting behavior like balanced diet, regular exercise, family support, etc., play an important role in good health. Adhering to a lifestyle that includes balanced low fat diet, regular exercise, and continued activity, along with positive thinking, enhances health and longevity. The modern lifestyle of excesses in eating, drinking, and so called fast paced good life has led to violation of basic principles of health in some of us as to what we eat, think, or do with our lives. Coping with stress. In recent years, the conviction has grown that it is how we cope with stress and not the stress one experiences that influences our psychological well-being, social functioning, and health. Coping is a dynamic situation specific reaction to stress. It is a set of concrete responses to stressful situations or events that are intended to resolve the problem and reduce stress. The way we cope with stress often depends on rigid, deep seated beliefs based on experience. Example: when caught in a traffic jam, we feel angry because we believe that the traffic should move faster. To manage stress, we often need to reassess the way we think and learn the coping strategies. People who cope poorly with stress have an impaired immune response and diminished activity of natural killer cells. Individuals show consistent individual differences in coping strategies they use to handle stressful situations. These can include both overt and covert activities. The three coping strategies given by Handler and Parker are: task-oriented strategy. This involves obtaining information about the stressful situation and about the alternative courses of action and their probable outcome. It also involves deciding priorities and acting so as to deal directly with stressful situation. For example, schedule my time better or think about how I have solved similar problems. Emotion oriented strategy. This can involve effort to maintain hope and to control one's emotions. It can also involve venting feelings of anger and frustration or deciding that nothing can be done to change things. For example, tell myself that it is not really happening to me or worry about what I am going to do. Avoidance oriented strategy. This involves denying or minimizing the seriousness of the situation. It also involves conscious suppression of stressful thoughts and their replacement by self-protective thoughts. Examples of this are watching TV, phone up a friend, or try to be with other people. Lazarus and Folkman has conceptualized coping as a dynamic process rather than an individual trait. Coping refers to constantly changing cognitive and behavioral efforts to master, reduce, or tolerate the internal or external demands that are created by the stressful transaction. Coping serves to allow the individual to manage or alter a problem and regulate the emotional response to that problem. According to them, coping responses can be divided into two types of responses: problem focused and emotion focused. Problem focused strategies attack the problem itself, with behaviors designed to gain information, to alter the event, and to alter belief and commitments. They increase a person's awareness, level of knowledge, and range of behavioral and cognitive coping options. They can act to reduce the threat value of the event. For example, I made a plan of action and followed it. Emotion focused strategies called for psychological changes designed primarily to limit the degree of emotional disruption caused by an event, with minimal effort to alter the event itself. For example, I did some things to let it out of my system. While both problem focused and emotion focused coping are necessary when facing stressful situations, research suggests that people generally tend to use the former often more than latter. Stress management techniques. Stress is a silent killer. It is estimated to play a significant role in physical illness and disease. Hypertension, heart disease, ulcers, diabetes, and even cancer are linked to stress. Due to lifestyle changes, stress is on the increase. Therefore, schools, other institutions, offices, and communities are concerned about knowing techniques to manage stress. Some of these techniques are relaxation techniques. It is an active skill that reduces symptoms of stress and decreases the incidence of illness such as high blood pressure and heart disease. Usually, relaxation starts from the lower part of the body and progresses up to the facial muscles in such a way that the whole body is relaxed. Deep breathing is used along with muscle relaxation to calm the mind and relax the body. Meditation procedures. The yogic method of meditation consists of a sequence of learned techniques for refocusing of attention that brings about an altered state of consciousness. It involves such a thorough concentration that a mediator becomes unaware of any outside stimulation and reaches a different state of consciousness. Biofeedback. It is a procedure to monitor and reduce the psychological aspect of stress by providing feedback about current physiological activity and is often accompanied by training. Biofeedback training involves 3 stages: developing an awareness of a particular physiological response, example heart rate, learning ways of controlling that physiological response in quiet conditions, and transferring that control to conditions of everyday life. Creative visualization. It is an effective technique for dealing with stress. Creative visualization is a subjective experience that uses imagery and imagination. Before visualizing, one must set oneself a realistic goal, as it helps to build confidence. It is easier to visualize when one's mind is quiet, body relaxed, and eyes are closed. This reduces the risk of interference from unbidden thoughts and provides the creative energy needed to turning an imagined scene into reality. Cognitive behavioral techniques. These techniques aim to inoculate people against stress. Stress inoculation training is one effective method developed by Mission Bomb. The essence of this approach is to replace negative and irrational thoughts with positive and rational ones. There are 3 main phases in this: assessment, stress reduction techniques, and application and follow through. Assessment involves discussing the nature of the problem and seeing it from the viewpoint of the person or client. Stress reduction involves learning the techniques and reducing stress such as relaxation and self-instruction. Exercise can provide an active outlet for the physiological arousal experienced in response to stress. Regular exercise improves the efficiency of heart, enhances the function of lungs, maintains good circulation, lowers blood pressure, reduces fat in the blood, and improves the body's immune system. Swimming, walking, running, cycling, skipping, etc. helps to reduce stress. One must practice these exercises at least 4 times a week for 30 minutes at a time. Each session must have a warm-up, exercise, and cool-down phases. Promoting positive health and well-being. It is unlikely that we all go through life without some experience of personal crisis causing acute pressure for a while. Many people sail through and rebuild their lives very positively. They are likely to have constructive attitudes and also have lots of emotion and social support of various kinds available to them. When we find ways of managing these pressures and can use the energy to create something positive out of the situation, then we'll have learned to survive healthily, and this will leave us more stress fit for future crises. It is like being immunized against the dangers of unhealthy stress. Stress resistant personality. Recent studies by Kawasa have shown that people with high levels of stress but low levels of illness share 3 characteristics which are referred to as personality traits of hardiness. It consists of the 3 C's: commitment, control, and the challenge. Hardiness is a set of beliefs about oneself of the world and how they interact. It takes shape as a sense of personal commitment to what you are doing, a sense of control over your life, and a feeling of challenge. Stress-resistant personalities have control, which is a sense of purpose and direction in life, commitment to work, family, hobbies, and social life, and challenge, that is, they see changes in every life as normal and positive rather than as a threat. Everyone does not have these characteristics. Many of us have to relearn specific skills in areas such as rational thinking and assertiveness to equip ourselves better to cope with the demands of everyday life. Life skills are abilities for adaptive and positive behavior that enable individuals to deal effectively with the demands and challenges of everyday life. Our ability to cope depends on how well we are prepared to deal with and counterbalance everyday demands and keep equilibrium in our lives. These life skills can be learned and even improved upon. Assertiveness, time management, rational thinking, improving relationships, self-care, and overcoming helpful habits such as perfectionism, procrastination, etc. are some life skills that will help to meet the challenges of life. Assertiveness. Assertiveness is a behavioral skill that helps to communicate clearly and confidently our feelings, needs, wants, and thoughts. It is the ability to say no to a request, to state an opinion without being self-conscious, or express emotions such as love, anger, etc. openly. If you're assertive, you feel confident and you have high self-esteem and a solid sense of your own identity. Time management, the way you spend your time determines the quality of your life. Learning how to plan time and delegate can help you relieve the pressure. The major way to reduce time stress is to change one's perception of time. The central principle of time management is to spend your time doing the things that you value or that help you to achieve your goals. It depends on being realistic about what you know and that you must do it within a certain period of time. Knowing what you want to do and organizing your life to achieve a balance between the two. Rational thinking. Many stress related problems occur as a result of distorted thinking. The way you think and the way you feel are closely connected. When we are stressed, we have an inbuilt selective bias to attend to negative thoughts and images from the past, which affect our perception and the present and the future. Some of the principles of rational thinking are challenging your distorted thinking and irrational beliefs, driving out potentially intrusive negative anxiety, provoking thoughts, and making positive statements, improving relationships. A key to a sound lasting relationship is communication. This consists of three essential skills: listening to what the other person is saying, expressing how you feel and what you think, and accepting the other person's opinion and feelings, even if they are different from your own. It also requires us to understand misplaced jealousy and sulking behavior. Self care. If we keep ourselves healthy, fit, and relaxed, we are better prepared physically and emotionally to tackle the stresses of everyday life. Our breathing pattern reflects our state of mind and emotions. When we are stressed and anxious, we tend towards rapid and shallow breathing from high in the chest with frequent sighs. The most relaxed breathing is slow, stomach centered breathing from the diaphragm, that is a dome like muscle between the chest and the abdominal cavity. Environmental stresses like noise, pollution, space, light, color, etc. can all exert an influence on our mood. These have a noticeable effect on our ability to cope with stress and well being. Overcoming unhelpful habits. Unhelpful habits such as perfectionism, avoidance, procrastination, etc. are strategies that help to cope in the short term, but which make one more vulnerable to stress. Perfectionists are persons who have to get everything just right. They have difficulty in varying standards according to factors such as time available, consequences of not being able to stop work, and the effort needed. They are more likely to feel tense and find it difficult to relax, are critical of self and others, and may become inclined to avoid challenges. Avoidance is to put the issue under the carpet and refuse to accept or face it. Procrastination means putting off what we say we need to do. We all are guilty of saying, I'll do it later. People who procrastinate are deliberately avoiding confronting their fears of failure or rejection. Various factors have been identified which facilitate the development of positive health. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, social, and spiritual well being, and not merely the absence of diseases or infirmity. Positive health comprises the following constructs: a healthy body, high quality of personal relationships, a sense of purpose in life, self regard, mastery of life's tasks, and resilience to stress, trauma, and change. Box presents the relationship between resilience and health, specifically factors that act as stress buffers and facilitate positive health are diet, exercise, positive attitude, positive thinking, and social support. Diet. A balanced diet can lift one's mood, gives more energy, feed muscles, improve circulation, prevent illness, strengthen the immune system, and make one feel better to cope with stresses of life. The key to healthy living is to eat 3 main meals a day and eat a varied, well balanced diet. How much nutrition one needs depends upon one's activity level, genetic makeup, climate, and health history. What people eat and how much do they weigh involve behavioral processes. Some people are able to maintain a healthy diet and weight while others become obese. When we are stressed, we seek comfort foods which are high in fat, salts, and sugar. Exercise. A large number of studies confirm a consistently positive relationship between physical fitness and health. Also, of all measures an individual can take to improve health, exercise is that lifestyle change with the widest popular approval. Regular exercise plays an important role in managing weight and stress and is shown to have positive effect on reducing tension, anxiety, and depression. Physical exercises that are essential for good health are stretching exercises such as yogic asanas and aerobic exercises such as jogging, swimming, cycling, etc. Whereas stretching exercise have calming effect, aerobic exercise increase the arousal level of the body. The health benefits of exercise work as a stress buffer. Studies suggest that fitness permits individuals to maintain general mental and physical well-being even in the face of negative life events. Positive attitude. Positive health and well-being can be realized by having a positive attitude. Some of the factors leading to a positive attitude are having a fairly accurate perception of reality, a sense of purpose in life, and responsibility, acceptance and tolerance for different viewpoints of others, and taking credit for success and accepting blame for failure. Finally, being open to new ideas and having a sense of humor with the ability to laugh at oneself help us to remain centered and see things in a proper perspective. Positive thinking. The power of positive thinking has been increasingly recognized in reducing and coping with stress. Optimism, which is the inclination to expect favorable life outcomes, has been linked to physiological and physical well-being. People differ in manner in which they cope. For example, optimists tend to assume that adversity can be handled successfully, whereas pessimists anticipate disasters. Optimists use more problem-focused coping strategies and seek advice and help from others. Pessimists ignore the problem or source of stress and use strategies such as giving up the goal, which stress is interfering or denying that stress exists. Social support is defined as the existence and availability of people whom we can rely upon. People who let us know that they care about, value, and love us. Someone who believes that he or she belongs to a social network of communication and mutual obligation experiences social support. Perceived support, that is, the quality of social support, is positively related to health and well-being, whereas social network, that is, the quantity of social support, is unrelated to well-being because it is very time-consuming and demanding to maintain large social network. Studies have revealed that women exposed to life stress status who had a close friend were less likely to be depressed and had lesser medical complications during pregnancy. Social support can help to provide protection against stress. People with high level of social support from family and friends may experience less stress when they confront a stressful situation, and they may cope with it more successfully. Social support may be in the form of tangible support or involving material aid such as money, goods, services. For example, a child gives notes to her friend since she or he was absent from school due to sickness. Family and friends also provide informational support about stressful events. For example, a student facing stressful event such as difficult board examination, if provided information by a friend who has faced a similar one, would not be able to identify the exact procedures involved, but also it will facilitate in determining what resources and coping strategies could be useful to successfully pass the examination. During times of stress, one may experience sadness, anxiety, and loss of self-esteem. Supportive friends and family provide emotional support by reassuring the individuals that she or he is loved, valued, and cared for. Research has demonstrated that social support effectively reduces psychological distress such as depression or anxiety. During times of stress, there is growing evidence that social support is positively related to psychological well being. Generally, social support leads to mental health benefits for both the giver and the receiver. Summary: stress is a part of life. Stress is neither a stimulus nor a response, but an ongoing transactional process between the individual and the environment. There are three major types of stresses: physical and environmental, psychological, and social. Sources of stress are life events, everyday hassles, traumatic events. The response to stress is emotional, physiological, cognitive, and behavioral. Coping is a dynamic situation specific individual reaction to stress. There are three main types of coping: task oriented, emotional oriented, and avoidance oriented coping. Coping responses may be problem focused or emotion focused. Problem focused coping focus to alter the environment and acts to reduce the threat value of the event. Emotion focused coping are strategies for changing emotions and aim to limit the degree of emotional disruption caused by the event. It is then essential to have a healthy lifestyle for handling stress and effective coping. Assertiveness, time management, rational thinking, improving relationships, self care, and overcoming unhelpful habits are life skills that help us to meet life's challenges. Positive health and well being come through balanced diet, exercise, positive attitude, positive optimistic thinking, and social support. There is also a need of overall harmonious conditions in society. We must avoid taking unhealthy escape routes or smoking, alcohol, drugs, and other harmful behaviors.